Hi guys, FrostFangs here, welcome back once again, of course, to another Paladins video. We are on the PTS, the public test server for the new update. Vora's Pact, I believe, is the name of the patch. It's got the new champion, the new balance changes, or the new skins, as you can kind of tell. It looks a little bit different. Don't know exactly when the patch will be live. My best guess would be towards the end of October, but do stay tuned to the channel because I'll be trying to cover as much of this stuff as I can whilst it's up, which will be hopefully a week or two. It came up sooner than I was expecting, so shouts to Evil Mojo for actually getting it up like a few days after the live show. That was really nice to see. Definitely was kind of surprised because it's about 1 AM I'm recording this video. Was not expecting it to be up till next week, but here we are. We're going to be covering Vora today. This one's going to be more of an introduction video than anything else, kind of showing you the new character, going through her kit and everything, and then I'll have a video tomorrow or the day after, or, you know, sometime soon, actually playing her in some games and stuff. So yeah, here is her actual kit. She's a flank. She has 2000 health. We'll start off with the ultimate, Harbinger's Wrath. You channel your wrath to hunt down your enemies, increasing your movement speed by 80% and decreasing the damage you take by 30%. I'm also pretty sure it makes you CC immune. It doesn't say that there, but in the patch notes show it looked like it did. I'll check that in the target practice in a sec. But basically you get a huge speed buff, damage reduction, and you just basically move around trying to search for somebody to execute, because that's pretty much what the ability is. As it says here, you select a target with your left mouse button to hit them, you stun, cripple, and silence them. If they're above 66%, you also deal 1100 damage. If they're below 66%, you will just straight execute them, kind of similar to a Lex ultimate. The ability lasts 5 seconds, and you can also cancel it if you hit E again. Then for her basic attack, which is one of her more interesting parts, you send out projectiles that deal damage over a short duration, so it is tick damage. The attack chain is medium, light, light, heavy, and then light again, according to this. You can see the damage numbers and the timings for it there. The passive on it is that everybody you hit with your scythe will actually give you a stack of apparently darkness, and then using your Q or your right click will use those stacks. You'll heal for 100 over 1 second, and it will also buff the ability if you have max stacks, which is 5. From what I saw on the patch notes show, she seems to play a bit like a mix between a Grover and a Zin. It's kind of hard to explain, but as I said, we'll show it off in a second. For her right click, you jump up and slash down around you. It's got a pretty cool animation. You'll deal 500 damage and also knock them back a little bit. But the more interesting part for the ability, at least in my opinion, is the fact that you're completely damage immune and then also have CC reduction whenever you pop the right click. It isn't that long of an ability. It seems like it was like half a second or a second. It's got a cool animation, like I said, but it does, give you pretty much just a straight get out of jail free card. Then, like I said, comboing with her passive, if you do have the 5 stacks, you'll deal an extra 300 damage, turning it into 800, and also slow them for 30% for 2 seconds. Not that big of a deal, not really something you need to take into consideration, just a nice buff and a bit of synergy with her kit. Then for her Q, which does have a 6-second cooldown, didn't mention it for the right click, but it is 12 seconds as you can see. But with the Q, you launch a vicious projectile from your scythe, dealing 200 damage on hit and then 400 over 1.5 seconds. Hitting an enemy will also cause you to regen health for 300 over 2 seconds. On its own, it doesn't seem too strong, but when you do have max stacks, it will also be a cripple for 1.5 seconds, which is pretty damn big, considering it's only got a 6-second cooldown. You see why I'm kind of drawing comparisons here with Grover. She's also got some really cool cards that buff this one out. But yeah, the ability itself is just a buff to left click, really, and then the F, which is pretty much copy-paste from Grover. You manifest your will, propel yourself forward into a target that you hit with your F. It has pretty much the same animation. You can also do it 2 players. It's just kind of a grab. I don't really know how else to explain it. You'll see it in a sec. As you can see, she's actually releasing with a decent amount of skins, some that pretty much completely change how the character looks. I think this is really cool. She's got one that is kind of just a bit of a buffed recolor. It does look really, really nice though. She then has Galactic Conqueror, which I think is really, really cool. This skin looks fantastic. Completely changes the character. I'm actually surprised that we got this at release. They could have easily delayed this, but this is a really cool skin. If you want to play and have a look like this, I imagine the effect on it will also be kind of nice. We'll go ahead now and just roll for it in the chest so we can show it off in this video. Galactic Conqueror Vora, there we go, unlocked. I don't know how much the chest costs. I don't think it actually says. Apparently, according to the patch notes, you unlock it with 800 crystals, but here it's in a chest, which is a bit weird. So apparently it is just a direct purchase. The recolor is also a direct purchase. Then she has some from, I think it is the season pass for 2019-2020. She has this one, which again changes the character pretty damn massively. I'm really happy that they're giving character skins on release because this stuff looks sick. Then she has a recolor of that one in blue, and I think this one is her gold skin, which also looks sick. Top-notch stuff. I'd actually say she's probably one of the more hyped characters that's released in a little while. She's got a couple emotes. She's got this one, which I don't even know how to pronounce, Crescent Sweep, which looks actually really, really cool. Top-notch one. I've not seen that before. And then her default one, which is also kind of nice. She has MVP poses, which I guess we can go through really quick. Super straightforward stuff. And then the loadouts, which is the more interesting stuff, at least for me, than emotes and poses. We'll go through them all kind of quickly, and then I'll point out the more interesting ones. This one's pretty straightforward, just buffs the heal on your Dark Siphon. This one reduces the cooldown of your pull whenever you land your Dark Siphon. Crimson Ascent is the one that I do think is pretty damn cool, which means that whenever you don't land your actual right click, you will get cooldown rate reset. Not too many characters have abilities like this. The only one that comes to mind is Maldamba, but this is massive because the cooldown on the ability is actually only 6 seconds, if I remember correctly, so you can actually have it so that it only has 1 second cooldown if you miss. Then she has another one, which I think is kind of interesting, Unified in Purpose, which reduces the damage you take for 10% per level for 1 second after you hit somebody. Then for her Tendril, her movement ability, pretty straightforward stuff, cooldown reduction, shield, and then damage reduction, very similar to what you see on Grover. She does have this one, which is kind of interesting, which reduces the cooldown of your right click and also your Q by 0.4 after you use your F. That's 2 seconds at max level off of both the abilities. Not crazy strong, it definitely could scale a bit harder, but overall a bit of an interesting card. Then for her Q, the one that gives you the immunity and CC reduction and stuff, she has a card that gives her a bit of a heal, a bit of ultimate gen. Then she has one that also reduces the equivalent of your right click with your obliteration, then also increased knockback. These ones are probably the weakest out of the set. Inevitability isn't too bad, but overall these cards don't seem like anything crazy, whereas some of the other ones seem a bit more interesting. False Idol is definitely a unique one. Whenever you drop below 40% health on a 15-second internal timer, you will get a 5% movement speed buff and 5% lifesteal for 2 seconds, which means at level 5, 25% speed and also lifesteal for 2 seconds after you drop below 40%. Kind of cool. Not necessarily too strong, but definitely a little bit unique. A standard health increase, and then also a bit of extra healing whenever you consume your darkness. 10 per stack. It's usually 100, so technically you could give yourself a 50% buff to the healing from it, which might be kind of strong, but definitely isn't anything too unique. And then the final one, which gives you movement speed every time you hit somebody with your basic attack. This one is one that is, again, pretty different. 6% per level for 1 second, and you're throwing them out all the time, so you could technically give yourself nearly a permanent speed buff. On paper it seems pretty strong, but I wonder how janky it'll actually be when you try it out in game. For her talents, nothing too crazy, kind of the same thing with her cards. None of them stand out like they did with Corvus, who was the last character who released where it was kind of obvious one talent and one of the cards was going to be really, really strong. With Vora, it seems like it's a bit of a different thing. I imagine at release she's going to be relatively balanced. It might need a slight buff or a slight nerf, but I guess we'll see. But yeah, for the first one you get, she has unyielding pressure, which means that your Q will deal 10% extra of the target's maximum health as damage over 1.5 seconds. Pretty straightforward. I'd probably put this as joint second place combined with the next one you get, which just gives your F an extra charge. In some situations, not going to make that big of a difference with like an EV or the flanks and stuff, but obviously if you're hitting a tank, that's like an extra 400 or 500 damage on an ability you can throw out pretty much every 5 or 6 seconds. Kind of mad. And I don't think one is technically better over the other, and I think it will be more just personal preference and situational. And then the third one, I actually say is probably the worst because it is the most situational, although in the situations you'll pick it, it will definitely be the best. It's called Deafening Silence and it gives obliteration. That's the ability with the damage immunity and also the CC reduction. A silence for 1.5 seconds. Pretty damn strong, but in a lot of situations it isn't really going to do very much, so it will be, again, situational, kind of similar to the other two. But I definitely say it's a bit more specific than the other two. This intro has been going on for really, really long. I've been talking here for about half an hour. Hopefully I managed to condense that down into something that made sense. Let's finally go and actually jump into the bloody target practice or shooting range. It's not even called target practice anymore. Don't even know how I'm going to cut that one down. I don't even feel like I rambled at all. I was just kind of going through the points I wanted to explain. I am pretty hyped for Vora. I think a lot of people are. She's probably the most hyped release, like I said, in a hot minute. We'll go ahead and grab her, and I guess we'll start off with the first one you get, unyielding pressure. But here is what she looks like. We'll go ahead and drop the inspect. It's a pretty quick inspect animation. I'm pretty sure she just has one. Some characters have multiple, as far as I can tell from just spamming it there. She only has one. The weapon actually has a significantly better range than I was expecting. For some reason I thought it would be kind of similar to Xin. This one feels like it goes way further than Xin's one does. That's actually kind of mad. As you can see, it definitely does have a range limit, but it's like, what, 200 units as far as I can tell? Yeah, pretty much 200 units, and it doesn't have any drop off. That's kind of crazy, actually. Yeah, as you can see, we now have the full stacks. You've got the effect on the weapon, the effect on the screen. I guess we should just show off the Q. As far as I know, it does just stop on hit. Yeah, it is a pretty quick animation though, which is good to see, because I was hoping it wouldn't have, you know, too lengthy of a one. It does seem like it's something you could just kind of blend in with your normal weapon shots to get a bit of a heal and also a bit of extra damage on people. Overall, I'm actually kind of surprised with her damage output right now. It seems like with the tick damage, you don't have like crazy burst or anything, which is good to see. A character who doesn't have burst, but you do have really good DPS overall. It just takes a little bit of time to actually, you know, go through somebody's health, as you can kind of see. But yeah, the Q isn't anything crazy. It's just a buffed weapon hit pretty much, although it does give a nice bit of CC. She actually has way more CC and the kind of utility than a bunch of the other flankers in the game. The F is pretty straightforward though. It even has the same indicator as Grover, and then you do the pull. Animation on the wrist is kind of nice, the way she kind of yonks herself towards it, but yeah, at the end of the day, it is just a pull similar to how Grover's works, but it does feel like it's a little bit more precise and a little bit less kind of floaty. With Grover's, you kind of hover a little bit. I don't know how it works with pulling yourself towards enemies. Okay, there we go. I guess it lifts you up off the ground a little bit and then kind of yonks you towards them. Finally, the right click, other than the ultimate, is probably her most impressive ability because it does have a really slick animation. You hop up in the air, you do a bit of a spin. The radius on it is way smaller than I thought it was going to be. I thought the damage radius would actually be kind of big, but I think the interesting way to use it would be to kind of pull yourself up and then pop the right click and kind of slam yourself down quickly to take somebody by surprise. It does also deal a decent amount of damage. You have 800 if you have your full stacks, but as you saw, it is very, very snappy, so getting the timing right to avoid damage and CC might be a little bit tough, but you can counter ultimates with this ability, so it kind of makes sense. You pull yourself up, you pop the right click, slam yourself down, and then, yeah, just start wailing on somebody. I guess the animation takes a bit of a wind up on a basic attack, but yeah, honestly, it doesn't feel too bad. You get the pull, it lifts you off the ground a little bit the second you activate it, which is a little bit strange, but you get some of the chain, you do the dip, you finish him off. The animation lockout on that is also kind of big. From my super short experience with her, the wind up times and also kind of the lockout times on abilities feel a little bit weird. The F is super snappy, which is nice. The right click has a bunch of time after it where you're finishing that animation where you can't do anything, which I guess is to stop it from being too strong. And then you have the Q, which is also pretty snappy, but yeah, the weapon when you first throw out the shot is a bit weird, and so is the right click because of how long you're waiting before you can do anything there. It feels like it's about half a second or a second. But anyway, you finally reach the ultimate, you go ahead and hit E, it takes you into third person. You do have to be very, very close to somebody to get the execute. They also have to be, yeah, kind of to the right of you. Pop the E, run over towards the victor, hit left click. You do have to be very, very close, and then you get the animation, you get the damage and stuff. You're only really going to use it if you're like expecting to fully kill somebody and just execute them. And like I kind of said, she feels a bit like an anti-tank flanker because she has the Q, which deals percentage damage. She has the ultimate, which is also an execute based on percentage damage, so she does do really well, I think, in normal kind of team fights. But technically with the speed buff and the damage reduction and stuff, you could easily use your ultimate to engage and then cancel it, or, you know, use it to escape. How much percentage do you keep if you cancel it early? You can go ahead and, yeah, buff yourself, run away. You are definitely CC immune, by the way. I don't know why it doesn't list that on the card. And then you cancel it and you lose the entire percentage. Oh, okay, for some reason I thought you'd keep some of it. Although it does seem if you die whilst you're casting it, you will keep 70% as it shows there. But yeah, you go ahead and execute the pip. The camera is also a little bit janky on it. Overall, she feels pretty smooth, but there's a few sections that are a bit weird and kind of confusing. But yeah, let's go ahead and show the execute. You run up to the pip, you spam the left click, you do the animation, which, yeah, camera on it is a bit weird, but does look pretty cool. And then he's gone. I have no idea what it looks like if you're on the receiving end of that. I'm actually kind of interested to see. I'm sure I'll find out soon enough whenever I friggin' play against her. After having played around with her a bit on the target practice, she is a really strange character to me. She's pretty smooth in a lot of areas. She's honestly really unique and quite interesting to play. She's a lot of fun, that's for sure, but she feels janky in areas that I wasn't really expecting. The F feels pretty decent, don't really have any complaints about that. The Q, you know, feels pretty good. Her animations are all top notch. She's actually a really visually kind of pleasing character. You've got the right click, which is cool, but has weird lockout on the end of it. The weapon also, like I said, has a bit of a weird wind up sometimes that doesn't feel very natural, but the most awkward part is the ultimate. And I was hoping that would be the coolest and smoothest part, but that was the bit that feels weird, and I'll explain quickly. Basically, you pop the ability, you get the damage reduction, the speed, you also get the CC immunity, which isn't listed on the description, but then trying to actually hit somebody with it can be a bit weird because you have to position them to the right of you. It's not just like in an area. The camera is closer than I feel like it should be, and it just feels not right. I feel like it could definitely do with being tuned a bit. It is the PTS, so you never know, it might get changed by the time it goes into live. It is very hard to try and explain in the video. It'll be something that you'll definitely notice if it goes through like this the exact same way, because you pop the E, you're spamming your left click to try and get somebody, and then, yeah, you basically just have to spam left click and hope that you're going to get the deduction on the person and be able to hit them with the ability, which is not something you want when the ability is a complete execute. That is something you very much want to land. But yeah, I pop the E, pip is there to my left. I'm not being able to get the execute until he goes to about there, which is a bit further right than you'd expect, and then it finally actually triggers. It's definitely not going to come across in the video. I'm sure if you play it, you'll get what I'm saying. After having used it like 30 or 40 times now in the target practice, I can kind of tell where the sweet spot is for it, but I don't feel like that is something I should have to do. It should just kind of work. But yeah, there we go. That was Vora. I don't really have too many other, I guess, closing thoughts. We'll go ahead and actually switch the skin real quick and show that off in the target practice. I nearly forgot. We'll switch over to the Galactic Conqueror, and we'll quickly jump into the shooting range just to show you the effect and stuff. I really like her. I think she's really, really cool, but she could definitely do with a bit of tuning. Overall, I'm really happy the PTS is even up this early. It means I hopefully have more time to make videos on other stuff, so definitely stay tuned for more PTS content. But yeah, here you go. Here is the skin. Pretty much the same thing, just with kind of a more crystally purple type of effect. The actual thing on your screen is the exact same, which is probably a good thing. The effect on the weapon is a bit different. The Q, as you can see, is a bit more shiny and purple. There is the Q. The effect on the wall that it leaves is actually really, really cool. For some reason, it looks like it's tearing through reality. Whoever was in charge of doing that, top-notch job. That's really, really cool. Then we have the F, which is the same thing, just purple, and then the right click, which doesn't really have too many effects anyway, so there's not really anything special there. If you pop the ultimate, it's purple instead of red, although the scythe is still red, and the execute looks, yeah, pretty much the same. So, you know, not too crazy of a skin, but she doesn't have too many effects in the first place, so I feel like this is the best they were probably able to do with, you know, the effects she has as an actual character. Yeah, there we go. That was Vora. I was originally planning for this video to be like 8 to 10 minutes long. Maybe I was able to cut it down to that, but I've been recording here for about an hour. I'll have a follow-up video where we actually play it in some games in a day or two, hopefully, if the PTS, you know, remains up and I actually get some time to get a couple games in, because I do want to just actually play a little bit before I make the first video, and then I'll maybe cover again at the end of the PTS. But there's a bunch of balance stuff, a bunch of other skins and, you know, changes, so definitely stay tuned to the channel. Like I said, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, let me know your thoughts, let me know also what you want to see me do next. I'll see you guys all very, very soon, and as always, stay Frost there.